There was once a wise man who spoke these inspiring words. Enough is enough. How long will you allow the potential within you to lie dormant? Don't let another day go by without you being able to say, I gave it my all. If you can't get out of bed when you plan to, is that what you call freedom? What about the feeling of being conquered? Does that happen when another country takes control of yours? Or do you feel conquered when an adversary takes possession of your house and all your belongings? Perhaps the feeling of defeat arises when you are imprisoned with your hands and feet tied, or when someone unexpectedly robs you of the chance to pursue a romantic interest. It is likely that this experience varies for each individual in terms of how the situations provoke a sense of overcoming. The ancient Stoics, with their wealth of insights, delved deeply into the art of achieving unconquerability. They believed that external forces cannot truly conquer a person unless they relinquish authority over their own choices. The only way in which external factors can affect us is when we, of our own free will, allow them in. When we feel that something has defeated us, we are essentially defeating ourselves by succumbing to it. The pursuit of unconquerability doesn't require us to conquer the whole world, but rather to conquer ourselves. This video explores the Stoic philosophy on how to become unconquerable. The way we evaluate external things decides how they influence us, not the things themselves. If we place a high value on something, we run the risk of developing a desire for it. If we then find what we want, we will feel euphoric, which is obviously a wonderful feeling. But when we somehow don't get what we want, we don't feel so good, and so we put our emotional state at the mercy of external circumstances. Imagine that you are genuinely attracted to someone at your workplace or school. Once you've plucked up the courage to approach them and successfully arranged a meeting, you'll probably be on cloud 9. However, if this person unexpectedly cancels the date at the last moment, you'll be disappointed and possibly even upset. Although situations involving withdrawal, rejection, or abandonment are common in the dating world, people's reactions can vary significantly. Some individuals simply shrug off these occurrences and move on with their lives, while others react by harboring resentment or seeking revenge. If rejection triggers a powerful emotional response in us, we can deduce that this event has succeeded in conquering our emotional state, and you can't be like that. This power to influence our emotional well-being and potentially shape our actions is also present when it comes to insults. If seemingly small insults manage to nurture days of lingering resentment, it's as if the person who expressed the insult has effectively won over the one insulted. However, there are much deeper ways in which people can gain influence over us, beyond mere insults or rejection. One example of this is manipulation through blackmail. A common form of blackmail involves threatening to tarnish someone's reputation. As many people value their reputation very highly, they can easily succumb to these tactics. In such cases, if someone gives in to this pressure, the person resorting to blackmail will have successfully won over their target. Another example is interrogation, accompanied by imprisonment and even torture, which was common practice in the Roman Empire. The effectiveness of these methods depends on how attached a person is to their body and how much pain they are willing to suffer. The Stoics say that we always have a choice, even in such horrible circumstances. If we submit to the actions of our torturer, we will have made the choice to be beaten by him. But if we refuse to give in, despite the severity of the torments, the torturer may damage our body, but he won't be able to defeat us. We are often disturbed but not crushed, sometimes in doubt, but never in despair. In the Discourses of Epictetus, an extensive collection of lectures by the 2nd century Stoic philosopher, we find him repeatedly emphasizing the unassailable nature of an individual's capacity for choice, alternatively translated as moral choice by some scholars. Regardless of the circumstances at hand, even in the face of the most dire situations, we retain the agency to maintain control over our actions or succumb to the conditions of the environment. Epictetus illustrates the power of this ability by recounting his response to a hypothetical scenario in which a tyrant threatens him. If he declared, "I'm going to put chains on him," my response would be, "He's threatening my hands and feet." When he states, "I'm going to execute him," I would reply, "He's putting my neck in danger." If his statement is, "I'm going to throw him in prison," I would reply, "He's endangering my whole thin body." And even if he uses the threat of exile, my response will remain unchanged. Epictetus illustrates in this passage that even if the tyrant tries to exercise power over him, he remains unconquerable. Sure, the tyrant can chain his legs, cut off his head, or throw him in prison, but these are simply external factors that don't depend on him, and therefore, according to Epictetus, are nothing to him. What counts are his actions, and no one but us can decide that. If we want to be unconquerable, we need to be willing to endure any hardship. We need to be prepared to completely discard what others might think of us, be willing to lose everything we own, even our most fundamental needs, endure confinement and the mistreatment of our bodies, and even bid farewell to those we hold dear. Every powerful attachment we harbor, whether it's an unshakable connection we hesitate to break or something we can't stand or tolerate, has the capacity to destabilize and influence our choices. A prime illustration of this is found in the story of psychiatrist and philosopher Viktor Frankl, who spent 3 grueling years of captivity in various Nazi concentration camps. In his work, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl recounts how Jewish prisoners were coerced into helping prison guards commit heinous acts against their own comrades in exchange for food and better treatment. Frankl observed how quickly individuals succumbed to brutal circumstances, willing to do whatever it took to survive, even if it meant betraying or mistreating others. However, a distinct group refused to allow circumstances to dictate their values, continuing to demonstrate acts of kindness and compassion. So, although the Nazis could subject these individuals to imprisonment, torture, starvation, and even extermination, they remained invincible. Seneca said that difficulties are not the problem, but our surrender to them. Therefore, a wise Stoic will not be disturbed by difficulties, which means that they cannot touch him. What element of evil is there in torture and other things we call difficulties? It seems to me that there is such an evil that the mind sinks, bends, and collapses. But none of these things can happen to the wise man. He remains upright under any load. Nothing can overwhelm him. Nothing that has to be endured annoys him, because he doesn't complain about being hit by something that can hit any man. He knows his own strength. He knows that he was born to carry burdens. Undoubtedly, the ideal state of the Stoic sage is formidable and almost unattainable. As with any profound aspiration, cultivating high unconquerability in the Stoic context requires persistent practice. The ancient Stoics recognized this challenge, but encouraged themselves and others to strive for improvement. However, maintaining unwavering rationality at all times can be demanding, as our rational actions often struggle to fully contain our emotions. If you still can't deal with the difficulties of emotions, I've left a link in the first comment to deal with negative emotions as the Stoics did. Check it out now. The ancient Stoics astutely observed that emotional reactions often precede our ability to intervene, causing the wise to be momentarily surprised. This led them to differentiate between passions and emotions. According to Stoic teachings, we exert influence over our passions, anguish, fear, lust, and pleasure. The Stoic sage is ideally immune to the passions. However, most of us are not wise and are subject to experiencing passions, at least at random. Fortunately, even under the sway of our passions, we have the ability to choose. Even if we find ourselves unhappy, overwhelmed by emotion, and to some extent defeated, we still retain the ability to determine our next actions. Thus, we can suggest that various lines of defense can be breached by external influences, with the final limit being our ability to choose. If someone violates this final line, they have in fact conquered us completely. Therefore, in order to achieve unconquerability, we need to protect our lines of defense. In this analogy, our ability to defend ourselves against the attacks of the passions can be strengthened through reason and restraint. We can defend the line of our choice or moral choice with the same weapons. It will be a little more challenging when the first line of battle is taken. If the enemy conquers our emotional state, it will influence our decision-making. For example, when there is a strong desire, we are more likely to base our decision on it, or when we are angry, we are more likely to act on it. So when the enemy is at our door, we need firepower to defend our ability to choose. We can compare this firepower to our intrinsic resilience, the ability to make sound decisions even in the face of overwhelming emotions. An illustration of this can be found in the movie The Lord of the Rings, where Frodo takes on the extremely daunting task of transporting the One Ring to Mordor and casting it into the flames of Mount Doom. The danger of the One Ring, lies in its ability to forge a strong bond between it and its wearer. Consequently, the person who wears the ring becomes so obsessed with it that they will do anything to avoid separation. Frodo, in fact, clings to his precious calling, as does Gollum, who is trying to take it away from him. Now, although Frodo gave in to his attachment at the end, he managed to carry the ring for thousands of kilometers, overcoming countless moments of temptation. Most of the other characters would probably have surrendered to the ring much earlier, like Boromir, for example. Once again, according to Stoic philosophy, there is only one element that can genuinely be conquered: our power of choice. Everything else is beyond our influence and subject to the whims of fate. Our possessions, be they wealth, our autonomy, or our position, can fade away, succumbing to the unpredictable turns of fortune. However, our ability to shape our beliefs, to yearn, to harbor resentment, to embrace, to abstain, to talk, or to remain silent remains an indelible part of us. As Viktor Frankl said, when we find ourselves unable to change a circumstance, we are faced with the challenge of transforming ourselves. Transforming ourselves comes from our actions to do so, and the only way we can shape ourselves is by using the nocturnal habits of the Stoics. Click on the screen and watch it now.